Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool and Ethereum spaces. My name is Wack, today is June 13th, and today's episode is going to cover a whole lot of Ethereum news, and we're going to be talking about ETH as digital oil, we're going to be talking about Thomasz asking for questions on Twitter, we're going to talk about SBET, we're going to talk a whole lot about stablecoins, and a whole lot more. So let's get started.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
Okay, so the only place to start today is with this news from Etherealize, and this was actually a report that they put out yesterday, and it says the stars are aligning for ETH, $1.25 billion of ETF inflows over 19 straight days, adoption as a treasury asset, and the price turnaround is 100% up from the recent lows. It says institutions are noticing, we've come together to tell the whole world why, introducing ETH, digital oil for the digital economy. So this is a report that Ethereum put out talking about how Ethereum is digital oil, a store of value, and global reserve asset for the digital economy. So this is dated June 2025, and it's kind of sent shockwaves through the ETH ecosystem. Here, this put out a tweet thread. It says things like read it, share it, ticker is ETH, and it says ETH is digital oil, it powers stablecoins, DeFi, institutional L2s, tokenization. ETH is burned, stained, staked, locked, and used as collateral, but it's more than that. It says ETH is a store of value. The max issuance cap is 1.51% per year. Staking yield is about 3%. Inflation rate is 0.8%. It says oil burns once. ETH burns, earns, and returns. Then they say ETH is a new type of asset, which needs a new valuation framework. We need to dream bigger. So this is actually a really cool section that I was really excited about, and it says that thank everyone who made this possible. So this was like some of the who's who in crypto Twitter and in the wider ETH ecosystem. So we had people like KOLs as well. So we had people like Danny Ryan, Vivek, Grant Hummer, Zach, and then some other names like Ryan, Leo, Anthony Sano, Hani Abu, Mike Silagazzi, and then Ryan Sean Adams, and a whole bunch of other people here as well. So there were big thanks that went out, and the report came out, and along with the report came out a special Bankless episode. So here, Bankless live now, why ETH might be the most mispriced asset in the world. And they said Ethereum is back with a bold new thesis for ETH, and that is ETH is digital oil. So in this episode, Vivek and Danny unpack their freshly released report, the bull case for ETH, which positions Ether as the next great store of value and a future global reserve asset for the digital economy. So the episode covers things like the bull case for ETH, why ETH, pitching it to Wall Street, ETH as digital oil, ETH's monetary policy, why hold ETH, the ETH BTC ratio, ETH as a store of value, Ethereum's scaling path, Ethereum's renaissance, Ethereum competitors, the report itself, Vivek in Congress, and then closing comments as well. So sadly, I haven't been able to watch this episode yet, but it's something that I'm super excited about, and I'm going to catch up on it very soon. The report itself is here. It has 38 pages, and it actually just is the bull case for ETH. And there's a whole lot of people who've been thanked for making it possible, and who were involved in contributing to the report. A lot of people who we know and who are very well known in the ETH community. And then here the chapters of it are a summary of it. And then the ETH digital oil, fueling the digital economy, Ethereum the infrastructure driving ETH's ascent, Ethereum and AI, the engine of autonomous economy, and then the bull case for ETH there as well. So like I said, the number of people who were kind of involved in putting this report together was numerous, and the people are people who are very well known. So what ended up happening is that a whole load of people kind of started pushing out this message. Like Leo here said that they actually let's come back to that in a second. So one of the things that they did was they put numbers on this about what ETH should go to, and the way that they kind of price it is they talk about ETH in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term, and the price targets for those different movements. And what they say is that in the short term, ETH should hit $8,000. In the medium term, ETH should hit $80,000. And in the longer term, ETH should hit $740,000. So they give those price points, and they make those predictions of what ETH will look like. So ETH's going to do pretty well according to this report. So I'm really happy to see some of those bigger numbers, because I feel like we as an ETH community, and we don't dream big enough. Like you literally have people in the XRP community saying that one XRP is going to be worth more than one Bitcoin. And, we kind of laugh and mock these people in some ways because of the totally outlandish claims. But I think that there's a sweet spot of being outlandish and kind of being reasonable and realistic. And as we tend to be, as Ethereans, we tend to be more on the conservative side of that. And I really think that, we need to start cheerleading bigger numbers and pushing forward grander visions and grander ideas. And I'm really happy that these Etherealized guys have come out and done that now. So that's really awesome to see. Here, Leo, who's one of the people who actually kind of memed this ETH to 80,000 in 2027 meme, with some of his chart lines and stuff. It might be bullshit, right? Well, not it might be bullshit. TA is bullshit. Sorry, pardon my language. But the reality is that people want a narrative to latch onto, and Leo actually did a really cool job of kind of memeing that $80,000 ETH target, for 2027, and I've seen so many people now start to push that number, and then ETH is $100 trillion assets being sold for $330 billion. I've seen Anthony Sassano and others kind of push that narrative as well, and that's where the $740,000 ETH target comes from, which is absolutely amazing. I really love it. So Leo here put out a video 17 minutes long, kind of explaining the report and Leo's involvement in that as well. And he says things like, digital oil for the digital economy, inelastic supply plus exponential demand equals supply shock, tokenized treasuries, AI, stablecoins, future collateral layer, and institutions are stockpiling ETH. And then there's a bull case there as well, is ETH equals the oil for the digital economy, and what that all comes together with. Anthony Sassano here says Ethereum has just released their ultimate bull case report for ETH, an institutional grade bull case for Ethereum and ETH that offers clear and articulate thesis on why ETH belongs in everyone's portfolio. ETH is a $100 trillion asset currently trading at $330 million. So this was actually a really nice messaging. And I think that this messaging is actually going to be kind of latched onto by the wider ETH community. I really do believe that a whole lot of people in the Ethereum space are going to be mentioning, making this report the foundation of their elevator pitch, the foundation of their messaging about ETH, and I'm really excited to see how all that works. Okay, so in the last episode, I kind of hinted at a little bit of drama in the ETH space with Peter Silady of Geth team, and kind of making accusations where it's who's kind of telling the truth and who's not telling the truth. Anyway, in response to that, Thomasz from the executive director of the Ethereum Foundation, the co-executive director, came to Twitter and said, please ask me openly all questions you may have now about anything related to changes, names, Geth strategy. I will answer anything that does not disclose confidential information. I'll be responding to messages on Twitter where the questions do not ask me for quoting or interpreting other people's words, as there can always be nuance or misinterpreted. I will answer any question about my own actions or plan of now or from the past. So here, Peter was one of the people who was like, oh, I haven't pick me. So Peter said mistakes were made about the Ethereum Foundation. He says, why does the Ethereum Foundation leadership not take responsibility? And then he says, devs are being fired left and right. Is there any framework to hold higher ups responsible, or is it just Vitalik's rule of law? So Thomas replied by saying, I don't agree with you that the EF management, what do you mean here when you say EF? It sounds like you might mean management / particular people do not take responsibility. He says, we have implemented changes to the protocol team. Some people are leaving as a result. Probably all of them are exceptionally good and will quickly find new roles in the ecosystem or within their expertise. He says some of them might have been in the wrong projects or temporarily lost motivation, like it often happens when some changes are introduced with too much delay. He says, I'm paying attention to the management performance. I'm not responsible for the board or Xiaowei, but I am responsible for ensuring deliveries from the rest of the management team. I'm happy with many of the changes that have been introduced since March together. And he says we're open to receiving more feedback. He says we also empowered more team leads, and they'll be learning and improving fast with more responsibilities they have now. And then Peter said, I'm talking about Aya and Josh, who as far as I know, most Ethereum Foundationers would be happy to go without, but you of course knew that all along. And then Thomas says, Aya is on the board and is not in the management. Josh is one of the best operators I have worked with. Both are wonderful people. And then other people kind of started commenting on that. But then yeah, this was a very interesting discussion where Peter was kind of asking these pointed questions and kind of going back and forth with Thomas, and then there were some other good questions as well that kind of came up about like the $1 trillion security initiative and single slot finality, Ethereum's role within the area of spreading awareness and education about Ethereum, the Ethereum Foundation's role, and then a whole lot more questions as well. So there was some really good information from here. Like as always, I've been saying it over and over again, Thomas's leadership has been absolutely astonishingly good compared to what we had at the Ethereum Foundation before in terms of optics. I'm not talking about on the on the ground day to day. I'm talking about what people are seeing on Twitter, what people are saying in conversations that are happening. Like Thomas has been absolutely fantastic. Like just making himself present for answering questions on Twitter, making himself present for calling people, talking to people, trying to get a lay of the land of the wider Ethereum ecosystem, trying to find out what's happening within the Ethereum Foundation. All of these things absolutely being astonishingly good so far. I'm just so impressed every day about the amazing stuff that Thomas is doing. I'm just happy to see that he's still doing this and keep going with this. So yeah, this is really awesome. And one of the cool things here about is the Iris launch, the token that came. He says it's a collaboration between Nethermind and Virtuals. The team at Nethermind has worked a longer time on integrating auditing agent into Virtuals agent design. Agentic AI technology and blockchain has some utility, but still an exploration, a play, an early step in building functional agentic economies of the future. He said, I'm very happy to see Virtuals on the Ethereum mainnet. I think there's a talented team. So yeah, there's a whole lot more here that I like a lot, and I'm really happy. I'm really happy that Thomas is putting the best foot forward like this. Oh, and one other piece of information that he came out is there was some stuff about Geth there, and then there was also news about a dedicated manager to run the Ethereum Twitter account. So he says, we've got a new Twitter comms manager joining us next week. The current intern does an excellent job, but is overloaded with many other super important tasks. So I think the person who's managing the Twitter account right now might be someone like, Justin Drake or Tim Biko or someone who's super busy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure the person is doing a great job. Twitter, or the Ethereum Twitter account, has definitely turned a corner and been putting out some really good content. But yeah, it looks like the team's going to be getting even better with Twitter in the days and weeks to come. So that's definitely something to look out for. Okay, there was some SBET further around, and the share price actually kind of tanked a little bit, and it seems like people didn't know what the filings were. So here, SBET had their S3 filing, and in the S3 filing, there was some information about shares that were owned and when companies would be able to sell the shares, and how that process kind of was put together. And I think what happened is people thought that this was those companies and those people actually selling the products and selling the shares. So the Joe Lubin came out and put out clarifying statements saying there's some misrepresenting the filing, and it registers shares for potential resale by prior investors. It says the share owns after the offering column is hypothetical, assuming full sale of registered shares. This is standard post PIPE procedure in TradFi, not an indication of actual sales. To clarify, neither Consensus nor I have sold any shares, and the ticker is SBET. So it looked like there was some FUD that made it look like Joe Lubin and Consensus were selling some of their shares. In SBET, the price pumped a lot after the announcement came out. So people were like, oh, they're kind of cashing out, they're drugging us. But obviously, that wasn't the case, and the information was misconstrued. Here, Satoshi Tracker says SharpLink has acquired 176,271 ETH for $463 million to become the largest publicly traded ETH holder. They also staked 95% of their ETH. So that is an astronomical amount of ETH that has been staked. Amazing stuff. And then here, DC Investor had a take on it. He says, so the market freaked out about planned dilution everyone has been talking about here for weeks and misinterpreted the S3 as the shares being imminently dumped when they were just being registered. He said, might be the totally wrong move, but I've just doubled my position in SBET. So it looks like there's misunderstandings of what's actually going on. And there's been some clarity now, and hopefully, SBET will carry on stacking ETH and staking it, and good things will happen for them. Okay, the Wall Street Journal put out this story today saying that Walmart and Amazon have recently explored whether to issue their own stablecoins in the US. Now, this is based on legislation that's going through Congress, and it looks like we're going to talk about that a little bit later with more legislation stuff. But the Genius Act, is probably going to get passed very soon, and it only makes sense for everyone to issue their own stablecoins because they literally will be sitting on money that could be earning them so much yield. Like, for example, right now, if you have cash in your treasury, then that's doing nothing for you. But if you have short duration bonds, then those could be earning 3, 4, 5%, whatever the rate is nowadays. And the way that you can make these stable coins is you take the dollars you have, you put them into treasuries, and then you mint stable coins against those treasuries, and you don't pay the stablecoin holders any yield. And what happens is that you're taking that extra percentage off the top. It's just makes it so easy. Now, what could happen is with these huge companies like Walmart and Amazon, who depend on their customers coming back again and again, is you can tell your customers, who sign up for their web apps, hey, deposit your money into Amazon to get Amazon dollars, and you might get 1% off your purchases or whatever, and then those are converted into stable coins, and then you can shop in the Amazon ecosystem with those Amazon stable coins, and you can then Amazon would earn the yield on it, and you will have easier money to move around or whatever the situation is. But these guys are definitely going to be making a lot of money. Of course, the best money, the best stable coins would be the ones that are permissionless and usable in DeFi and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't know how that's going to go. I wouldn't at all be surprised if places like Walmart and Amazon make their own L2s on Ethereum, and then they will use that as the financial backbone of their actions, where their customers will be able to kind of be in the Amazon verse, and they'll have access to banking products, DeFi products, and a whole host of other things like Amazon related NFTs or whatever the cool kids are doing nowadays. They'll all have all of that stuff available to them, and they could definitely kind of build out an ecosystem within that. Of course, eventually those will become native rollups, which would then make them interoperable across the whole of the Ethereum ecosystem, which would be absolutely awesome to see. So yeah, this is happening. It's almost definitely the case that these are going to be built on Ethereum because that's where almost all of them are built on Ethereum. And yeah, it's going to be really cool to see how it works out. And then here as well, USDC is now being integrated on Shopify, so borderless payments for merchants. It makes it a lot easier, and then they're going to be joining forces with Coinbase and Stripe to bring frictionless, secure stablecoin payments to merchants around the world. And they're saying that USDC has grown to over $1 trillion in monthly volume, which is astronomical amount of money. And now Shopify, you'll be able to use that on Shopify. So they said there'll be stability without compromise, fast borderless transactions, effortless checkouts, all of that kind of stuff. If you actually watch the video here, DYOR.eth actually found this little screenshot, and it says ethwallet.eth, so it looks like it's going to be built on Ethereum as well. So this is what's going to happen. Everything's coming to Ethereum, and ETH is going to be the digital world that powers the digital world's industry and economies, and yeah, it's going to be absolutely amazing. Okay, this letter was sent by Congressman William Timmons to the Congress. So he says, to the SEC's Chair Atkins, and he's actually requested information on why the SEC in the previous administration had inconsistent treatment of ETH under Chair Gensler and the Biden administration. He says the American people and the crypto community deserve transparency as Congress moves forward with the Clarity Act. So this is really cool that the people here are actually going and asking the SEC, what was happening in the previous SEC? Why were these actions being taken? They didn't make any sense to those of us on the outside. What was the rationale? What was the reasoning behind it? And hopefully we'll get some interesting answers there. And then finally, in some other news, we actually have steps being taken forward on the Clarity Act. So this is the House Committee on Financial Services passes the Clarity Act on the 32-19 vote. So this was a bipartisan vote, advancing major crypto legislation to the floor for a full House vote. So it looks like this is going to be making moves forward, and this was put together by Mr. Hill of Arkansas, and I think Richie Torres was involved in this. I'm not sure. Yeah, Torres of New York and a whole bunch of others. So it's a bipartisan bill, House Resolution 3633, and it looks like it's going to move through Congress quite well. And then here, someone asked Grok, what's the Clarity Act? So, a bipartisan bill introduced in May to regulate digital assets like cryptocurrencies. It defines roles for the SEC and CTFC, aiming to clarify the rules for businesses and investors. It was passed the House Financial Services Committee on June 10th. Yeah, that's where it's going next. So, this is going to move forward, go through the House, then the Senate, and then to Donald Trump's desk to be signed into law. I don't know what the next steps are for this. Like, even though things move, they can stall quite quickly, or they can get amendments put on them and all sorts that can make it worse. But it looks like we're going to get two sets of crypto legislation very soon. We'll be getting the Genius Act, which is stablecoin regulation, and then we'll be getting the Clarity Act, which is market structures legislation as well. So yeah, crypto's moving up, Ethereum's moving up, everything is looking really, really good. So there's some macro news that I won't talk about right now that makes things look not so good, but otherwise, yeah, crypto's booming, crypto's thriving, and really, really good things are coming. And I'll be sharing news of it with you all every day. So on that note, thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocket Fuel community. I hope you all have a lovely day ahead, and I will see you tomorrow, or maybe I'll see you on Monday. Bye.